we're going to be focusing on mainly our ovaries, our oviducts, the uterus, and the vagina. Like just and then speak about the external things as well, right? So these are the components of the female reproductive system, right? So firstly, we can start talking about the ovaries, right? We just need to remember that the surface. So these are the nuggets that we can never forget, right? Number one, that the surface of the ovary is covered by a single layer of cuboidal epithelia that you also call germinal epithelia, which is just continuous with the peritoneal mesothelium, right? This one you need to remember. And also beneath this epithelia, you're just going to be having same like with the testes. You're also going to be having your tunica albuginea. Okay, so your tunica albuginea is the one that's going to be surrounding your ovary, just like in the testes. And we know that it is a layer of dense connective, dense, dense irregular connective tissue, right? Right. So the ovary is going to be having an outer cortex and an inner medulla. And from what we were discussing, we said that the medulla of the ovary from embryology it degenerates. Okay. When it degenerates, it's going to be invaded by my blood vessels, right? The medulla. So that's where you find blood vessels, and then the cortex is going to form. That's where you're going to be finding your connective tissue, highly vascularized connective tissue, highly cellular connective tissue, and you're going to be finding your follicles that are in different stages of development. Okay, so that's what you need to remember here, right? However, if you want to discuss this, we need to go into depth about the follicles, right? So you find out that in females, remember when I was speaking about the development of the ovary, we say that the ovary, you are going to be having your germ cells that are coming all the way from the yolk sac to line in the ridge, and then you form your cortical cords, and then which are going to split again to form your follicular cells, which surrounds your germinal cells to form your primordial follicles. So these are simple squamous cells that surround. Okay, so you've got simple squamous cells surrounding your primordial follicle. And these are the present in pre-pubertal women. So when puberty starts, you start to have got differentiation of these primordial follicles, which we know that they are going to be trapped in process one actually. So now when you start to move, you are going to be having something that's called differentiation whereby your cells, your follicular cells, they differentiate to form a unilaminar primary oocyte whereby the simple squamous cells they just become simple cuboidal cells. Okay. And then as it becomes multilaminar, these follicular cells they will start to increase in number then until we form your granulosa cells. Okay. So a primary follicle which we form after puberty is going to yes, you have two stages, your unilaminar and your multilaminar stage. Okay, that you need to remember. And now as you keep developing your ovary, right? As you okay, if we come back to our primary oocyte, we are going to be having like a layer of glycoproteins. Okay, a layer of glycoproteins is going to come and lie between the oocyte and the cells. Okay, so it's going to come and lie between the oocyte and the cells. If we have a picture here, it's going to be good. So the pictures here they are not good. I think this is not my slide actually. If we really, so this is the oocyte, right? Outside the oocyte here, between the oocyte and these follicular cells, you have a layer of glycoproteins which will come and form something that you call your what? Your zona pellucida. Perfect. So that's the zona pellucida. We need to remember that zona pellucida is not actually formed from cells. Okay. And then the cells that are just adjacent to the zona pellucida, they form what you call the they're going to form your corona radiata. Okay. So as your follicle starts to differentiate from a primary follicle to a secondary follicle, yes, there are a few stages that start to happen. Number one, the cells that are outside, those you remember like we were speaking about the cells that are just outside, they will divide and form your what is it? Cells that are just outside. um what is the word? I'm looking for a word. Yeah. Mm, mm, these are the word. Okay, cells will will be the ones that are. So what the function of this granular? Hello. Okay. So these granulosa cells, they are going to have a function of converting andro andros and androstradiol, and they are going to change it into estradiol or into estrogen. Okay, so that's the function of these cells. They don't secrete it, but they convert it, the granulosa cells. But then outside it, you are going to have stromal cells outside the granulosa cells. So these stromal cells are going to divide into two. You've got layers, that a layer that is highly vascularized, and that layer we call it the thicker interna. Okay, so the thicker interna is going to be having, it will be the one that's going to be producing cells. Okay, so it's going to be the one that's going to be producing hormones. So it's going to produce androstradiol, and then this hormone that it produces, it becomes a precursor to our estrogen. Okay, so that's what you need to remember. Your thicker internal cells, and then your thicker external cells, they are formed by your fibroblasts. So you just need to remember this orientation that you have got granulosa cells, granulosa cells, estradiol, and then our thicker internal, they are the ones that actually secrete the hormones. Okay, not forget this. And we have got something that you call formation of the antrum that lies inside the cavity. I think if we had a picture, I think let me try to find the picture, but for now let's just continue until I find the picture. So you start to form a fluid cavity, right? So when you form this fluid cavity in the center, you call that fluid cavity your antrum, right? So what happens is the oocyte is going to be suspended inside the antrum, and the cells that suspend the oocyte into the antrum, we call them the cumulus ophorus, and yeah, and then yeah. So that's just wanted something that I just wanted to speak about. And when an egg or an oocyte is released, and that is during ovulation, it will carry with it the zona pellucida, and it will also carry with it its corona radiata. Okay, so I'm just looking for a picture that can help us. Okay, so that part we are done. So yeah, so that's the first part. Let me try to change my slide so that I'm able to share with you guys something else from Janquera. I think what I just did right now was to just like um take you directly to Janquera, right? So yeah, what I just want us to appreciate, these are just stages of development of the follicle, right? Initially, you've got your primordial follicle, which is just this one, surrounded by your layer of simple squamous follicular cells. So this is the first one. And then what happens is, this is like found in prepubertal women. During puberty, these cells, they will start from this unilaminar primary follicle, which has got cuboidal cells, these ones, right? So this is a humila primary follicle, and then you start to form your zona pellucida internally here. So your zona pellucida is going to be like internally separating the oocyte from these cells. Okay. Then this is the multilaminar. Your zona pellucida is formed. The cells outside, they form the granulosa cells, and the stromal cells that lie outside this thingy are going to form your thicker interna, which secretes hormones, and then your thicker externa, which is just like there for protection. And then as we are undergoing these stages, you start to form this antrum. This is the antrum, the fluid cavity that you are forming. And then what I was just trying to say is like this. This is the oocyte, corona radiata, which is just the cells that are surrounding it. And then here is the granulosa cells that are suspending the oocyte into the antrum. They get a name that you call the cumulus ophorus. So that's the picture that I wanted us to see. And I think because you've seen that, okay, now perfect. I think that's good. Um, so now lastly, before we finish, When you have secreted, now let's imagine that we're talking about this now, this area whereby your oocyte is now developing and is reach the secondary, and then you've got release of the ovum. What's left is that we form something that you call what? Your we form your what is it? You form your corpus luteum, right? But then your corpus luteum is going to be made of two cells now. Now this is where we want to go back. Your corpus luteum is going to be made of your. Remember, you initially had your granulosa cells. Your granulosa cells, we are now going to start calling them granulosa lutein. Okay, your granulosa lutein cells. Okay, so that's the first part. So your granulosa lutein, they will lose their protein secreting nature, and then when they lose their protein secreting nature, your granulosa lutein, they will just be expanding on their converting, the aromatase converting function. So just the idea that I'm trying to bring is just this, that okay, here we are. Perfect. We are seeing a different slide. Let me just, okay, perfect. But let's just do this. Right, just so that we can see it. Right. Where were we? Right. Okay, right. We're talking about the corpus luteum, right? So, right. So the corpus luteum, what we're just trying to bring out is just this: that your corpus luteum is that thing that is left when you are now done, right? And we say that your cells that we're talking about, that is your granulosa cells, will form what your granulosa lutein. So your granulosa lutein will lose their protein secreting nature, and they will just focus on their role to convert our androstenedione, right, into our estrogen. Okay, and then if your lutein cells, your what is it? Your thicker cells, your thicker interna will form your thicker lutein. Okay, so your thicker lutein is the one that's going to be secreting both hormones, be it your progesterone and your precursor for estrogen. Okay, so this is what you need to remember, that these hormones, they are secreted by your what? By your thicker interna, not your granulosa lutein. So that is that. So corpus luteum will continue doing this, and then if the ovum is not fertilized, you have got your you have got your corpus luteum will start to degenerate to form your corpus albicans. Okay, I think you can also find this. So imagine that this is all also all these cells, they are located in the cortex, right? The cortex of your ovary, right? The cortex, right? So because they are located in the cortex, it's so easy for you. Whenever you look at the cortex, you can actually see your corpus albicans and all the cells that are in different stages of development. So now, more to the histological aspects. Now, this was more embryology, but the histological aspects, if we want to speak about layers, in females, we can start by speaking about the oviducts, right? So if you look at the oviducts in females, the oviducts, they are divided into different regions. Okay, the oviducts are divided into your what you call it, your ampulla, and your ampulla, which is the largest region, right? Your isthmus, which is the smallest region, your intramural part, which is again your intramural part, which is your part that has got no folds, right? Okay, so and then also lastly the first part. Okay, so if you want to speak about the order, you have got your first part being your infundibulum, right? Your infundibulum, we have fimbre. When I say fimbre, I'm just talking about this, like extensions that are next to the ovary that help us to grab the egg and pull it into the oviduct, right? So if we now want to, so we said the first part is going to be your infundibulum, then the second part is going to be your ampulla, which is the longest part, and this is where fertilization normally takes place. Then the isthmus is the narrowest portion, and then the intramural part, remember, that is the one that has got no folds. if I'm going to describe the structure, you can actually be describing that the mucosa now, the mucosa of the oviduct has got two types of cells. They've got ciliated simple columnar cells and secretory egg cells. Okay. So remember that also that it is highly folded, the mucosa, right? Numerous longitudinal folds, and they are more numerous in the region of the ampulla, and they are absent in the region of the intramural part of the oviduct. And then the muscularis of the muscularis mucosa of the oviduct, we have an inner circular layer and an outer longitudinal layer. Okay. So that is that. So we are done with the oviducts, which are our fallopian tubes. So here we're just seeing a picture, histological picture, but we cannot just pick up. We are not interested in that. And this is just what I was speaking about, the subdivision that you've got: your infundibulum, which is funnel shaped, your oviduct, your ampulla, your isthmus, and your last part, which is your intramural part, which is the one that enters into the uterus. Right. So just like that, we are done with the oviducts. The next part that we want to speak about is the uterus, right? So the uterus, we have got the body, which will form like the upper third. You've got the fundus, the body, and then your layers of the uterus going to form your endometrium, your myometrium, and your perimetrium. Okay. So if you speak about them from outside to inside, your perimetrium is going to be mainly serosa, right? Because it's going to be mainly covered by peritoneum. And then you move to your myometrium. This is your muscular layer, right? Muscular layer will be changing like the thickness, but the maximum is 5 millimeters. It changes thicknesses with different phases of the menstrual cycle and different phases of pregnancy. And then you have got your lastly your endometrium. Your endometrium is going to be the one that's it's got simple, it's got what? It's got simple columnar epithelia, but this one is non-ciliated. But you just also need to remember that the endometrium is the one that's going to be separated into two. It's going to be a functional layer and a basal layer, whereby the functional layers are going to be shed off during menses, at the same time going to be shed off during parturition, but your bacillus layer is going to be always there to germinate into more cells. hmm Okay, perfect. Okay, right. I think we spoke about this, that your endometrium is going to be divided into two regions. Right. So before we move on to the next region, we just have to remember two things, right? So the thickness is going to be dependent on the stage that we are at, right? So right. So we have got something that you call uterine glands, right? So your uterine glands, they are, we just need to speak about them. That the thing about the uterine glands is, regarding the different phases of the menstrual cycle, they attain a different shape, right? Imagine after the menstrual cycle, the next stage is going to be the proliferative or our follicular phase, right? So here, what we are doing is we are trying to regenerate the stratum functionalis. Okay. Then for your arteries, you remember that your straight arteries are the one that supply the basal layer, and then your spiral arteries supply the functional layer. So you are reforming your spiral arteries. But for your for your uterine glands, at this stage, they are short and branched, and they are hollow at this stage. But when you move from your first stage, which is this one, to your secretory phase, the uterine glands, they become more tortuous, more branched, in longer. So this is what you need to remember, that when you in the secretory phase, that is when they are more tortuous. Okay, this you should not forget it. It's always an MCQ question. I think I saw it like 4 or 5 times. Okay, so with that, I think we are done with the first part, which is the development of the uterus. Now, nextly, after the uterus, the next thing that we can discuss is the from the uterus. I think Pana, but the slide is actually missing something. The cervix, right? I think we are missing. the cervix. I think, yeah, it skipped. It was skipped. Yeah. Okay. So the cervix, you have got something that you call the endocervix, which is in communication with the uterus, and the ectocervix, which is in communication with the vagina. So the endocervix is going to be lined by mucus in that endocervix again, right? And then you are going to be having an ectocervix, which is going to be lined by our stratified squamous epithelia. And we are going to be having a squamocolumnar junction or transformational zone where the endocervix meets the ectocervix, and this area is very prone to it's this is a very an area that is prone to something that you call it. It's prone to cancers, okay, prone to our cervical cancers, and most of the cervical cancers they actually squamous cell carcinomas actually. So that is what we need to remember about the cervix. Also, so the thickness of the cervix, it does not change with the stage of the menstrual cycle. So especially of the endocervix. So you find it does not change. Its 2 millimeter diameter remains the same, remains constant, regardless of the stages that we are at. And lastly, just to remember this thing that the cervix, the mucus of the cervix is actually dependent on the stage of the menstrual cycle. During around the time of ovulation, there it's very thin to allow passage of the sperms, but afterwards it's very thick to prevent sperms, and usually, especially in pregnancy, it forms a plug actually to prevent passage of sperms. That you need to remember. And then when you move from the cervix, we move on to lastly to the vagina, which is actually a fibromuscular tube, and then it's got the mucosa, the muscularis, and the adventitia. So you need to remember something that you need to remember, right? Is that this thing has got the vagina has got no glands. Okay? So its mucus is going to be it's going to be coming from your cervical glands. I think this one was an MCQ in our exam, right? So we need to remember this one. So the mucosa of the vagina is going to be lined by stratified squamous epithelia, right? Stratified squamous epithelia. And then from there, you are going to be having the muscularis. Muscularis mucosa again of the vagina is going to be having an inner circular and the outer longitudinal layer of smooth muscle. And then, yeah, the outer layer is going to be formed by adventitia, right? The outer layer of the who is going to be coming from the adventitia. And with that, I think, lastly, I think let me just mention something that is spoken about in Janquera before we move to our MCQ session. Let me just stop presenting here and then we can just conclude. Okay. Okay. Oh, anyone have any question? Okay. So yeah, let me keep trying so that we can have our last MCQs and then we just call it a night. But you guys, are you wait? Are you are you are you guys just maybe say them like and then just say the answer and then I'll just send my slides in the group so that we can be able to do that. But for now, I think if it's okay with you guys, I can just be reading them out and then just saying the answers. Is that good? Perfect. Okay, right. MCQ number 1. So the cortex of the ovary contains connective tissue and the corpus albicans, right? So remember, I was speaking and I said that the cortex of the ovary has got highly cellular connective tissue, and the corpus albicans is like the remains of the corpus luteum, and I said it is found in the cortex, so that's true. Then the second meiotic division of the oocyte is completed at ovulation. This is this is false actually. Second meiotic division is actually completed just before fertilization. Then ciliated columnar epithelial lines the mucosa of the oviduct. We spoke about this and we said this is true. And then the structum functionalis of the endometrium is shed off at parturition. We were discussing this and we said true. The bacillus is the one that's not shed off. Then the epithelium of the cervical vaginal junction is prone to metaplasia. True. It's just cancer. Then if we move on to the next one, the following are present in an ovary of a 10-year-old prepubertal women, female. Number 1, A, oogonia falls. We know that oogonia, they are on all the oogonia, they are done like even before birth, because at birth the only things that are found are primordial follicles. B, corpus luteum. Corpus luteum, we only find it after when puberty starts. Then primordial follicles, true. Then ovarian stroma, false. Then Graafian follicles, this is false. I find them in prepubertal women. Then histology of the female genital tract. The mucosa of the uterine tube exhibits numerous longitudinal folds, true. Then numerous tortuous uterine glands are present in the endometrium during the proliferative phase of the menstrual cycle. False, I said these ones they are present in the what? Secretory phase. Then after parturition, the uterine mucosa degenerates from the bacillus layer. This is true. Then the stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium lines the vagina. Stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium lines the vagina. This is true. And then 90% of cervical cancers are squamous cell carcinomas. This is true. Then histology or let's see, there's what else. Histology of the female genital tract. Then simple columnar ciliated epithelium lines the oviducts. We said true. The uterine glands are more numerous and appear tortuous during the secretory phase. This is true. Then after menstruation, the uterine mucosa degenerates from the functionalis layer of the endometrium. This is false. Then the mucosa of the vagina consists numerous mucus glands. False. Remember I said there are no glands. Then the cervical vaginal junction is prone to metaplasia. True. Then in the adult ovary, cuboidal mesothelial cells cover the surface of the ovary. Remember I spoke about this and this is true. Then the cortex contains both growing and degenerating follicles. True. Primordial follicles are surrounded by cuboidal granulosa cells. False. If it's a primordial follicles, it's simple squamous cells. The cells of the thicker antenna are steroid secreting fibroblasts. So we know that these cells they come from our stromal cells, and our stromal cells include fibroblasts, mesenchymal cells. So I will say true. Then the corpus luteum is an endocrine gland. True, because it secretes hormones, progesterone. So last MCQ. Granulosa lutein cells of the corpus luteum secrete progesterone. This is true. No. The cells that secrete the progesterone are the thicker lutein cells. Granulosa cells, they won't secrete progesterone. Then epithelial cells lining the oviducts are ciliated. This is true. Then the uterine glands of the endometrium are more tortuous during the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle. This is false. They are more tortuous during the secretory phase. Then glands present in the mucosa of the vagina secretes mucus. We said there is no glands there. Then the cervical vaginal junction is prone to metaplasia. True. So with that, we are done with our MCQ marathon. Is there anyone who feels that justice has not yet been done with a question before we call this a night? Okay, so if we are all happy, then it was a pleasure having you guys. I think if anyone has a question, wants to say something, this is the platform. Mr. Gachepa.
No comments. Thank you so much, Dr. Dave.
Okay.